Hey guys, it's Eric G from Around the House Show. Is your barbecue just barely holding on and you need to upgrade it for the big game? We got you covered. Monument Grills was founded by three good friends in Atlanta, Georgia that wanted high-quality, durable grills inspired by iconic monuments. The grills are created for the person who loves to cook and are built to last and to enhance your outdoor cooking experience. What I love is that they are the best quality grills for under $900. So check out the American gas grill experts at monumentgrills.com. I bet you'll love to cook on one like I do. Check out the new standard in outdoor cooking at monumentgrills.com.
It's Around the House.
My top 10 questions you should be asking if you're out buying cabinetry. And this is a huge deal, so this can save you a ton of money and headaches. If you follow my rules here, it's going to help get you the information you need so you know how to make the decisions and where to spend money and maybe where not to. We've been cruising through the list here, and this is really big. We were just talking about it, box construction and inset. Around the House Show is brought to you by Pyramid Heating and Cooling. Serving in Oregon, the Portland metro area, and Bend, Oregon, they are your one-stop shop for heating and cooling and indoor air quality. To find out more, head to pyramidheating.com. Oregon CCV 59382.
When it comes to remodeling and renovating your home, there is a lot to know, but we've got you covered. This is Around the House.
Welcome to the Around the House Show, the next generation of home improvement. I'm Eric G. Thanks for joining me today, guys. This hour is brought to you by my friends at Monument Grills. If you're looking for that brand new barbecue, maybe it's just your barbecue's done. And we got the big game coming up here in a month or so you need a new barbecue for that. For all your friends coming over to watch your favorite team, whoever that is. I just know it's not the Seahawks because we'll be all watching it from the sidelines. And guess what? Check them out at monumentgrills.com. We've got a great show for you today. I'm looking forward to talking about some stuff here for cabinetry. But first, I wanted to talk real quick, and we'll talk about this more in a midweek special here one of these days. But I tell you what, I am not a fan of the new Extreme Home Makeover. I know you guys always ask me questions about the TV shows out there, so I couldn't stomach through it. It was just, the other ones were bad enough. I'd been on the sites before. I had volunteered. I had worked around on those and been a part of it. I tell you what, this one was cringe-worthy. So if you're looking for cringe-worthy TV, check out, I think it's on ABC, Extreme Home Makeover. Not a fan at all. And building a house in 7 days is not a good program. And quite frankly, I think some of these people really end up losing their home at the end of this. The ones that I saw, everyone started doing some research. They all lost their homes because they ended up getting mortgages and couldn't afford to manage their money correctly when they got these new $1 million homes. And so it just went badly. So be careful. It's cringeworthy. Just a show that doesn't get my seal of approval. If today I wanted to talk about my top 10 things you should know before you sign on the dotted line on cabinetry, whether it's a bathroom cabinet, whether it's kitchen, whether it's a laundry room, whether you're doing something in the garage, what are you doing with cabinetry? Here are my top 10 tips for you out there to ask these questions first so you know what's going on. Now, the first rule here, this is probably one of the most important ones, but it's something you have to understand when you're shopping cabinetry. So many people will go, oh, yes, I'm having custom cabinetry made for my home. It's so beautiful. And the sentence goes on and on. But the first thing to remember with cabinetry, it's the word custom. Means nothing except that they're building it for your project. It's not a stock cabinet, or it's not semi-custom, which means they're building it, even though they're building it for your project. You can do some modifications too, but the word custom has zero to do with quality, and the worst cabinet jobs I've seen across the country are always custom because there is no designation. There is no designation for custom as far as quality. Usually custom means it's a guy in a garage and he's got a table saw and some basic tools and he's going to make some cabinets for you. Now, there are some high-end, beautiful custom cabinet makers out there, and that's not what I'm talking about. But there are so many people out there that are little tiny custom cabinet shops that are using old technology, old styles, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. So that way, when you look at custom, you go, oh, I asked these other 9 questions and now I know what I'm getting. Because that's one of the biggest problems we see out there when it comes to cabinetry. So just remember, custom means nothing as far as quality. It could be the worst thing in the world. And quite frankly, there's a lot of larger cabinet shops out there that are not quote unquote custom cabinet shops that do better than some of the smaller cabinet shops out there. And listen to this episode, you'll understand why as we dive into this. So the next one on here, which is again, another important one, the finish on your cabinetry is one of the most important things to consider. Now, when I'm looking at cabinetry finish, whether it's a stain or a paint, when I hear the word lacquer, my hair stands up on end because there are so many better finishes. Now, there's a little asterisk to this we'll talk about in a minute, but lacquer is what you saw go on your 1957 Chevy coming out of the Chevrolet dealership in 1957. Now, if you remember in the 50s, 60s, 70s, into the 80s, Saturdays, what were people doing there out in the front yard, waxing their car, polishing, waxing it, getting that lacquer to look good because you had to rub it out and make it look good with some wax to protect it. It's no different when you're looking at lacquer on wood cabinetry. Now, the exception here is when you're doing like the sanded, high gloss, contemporary, 22 coats of hand gloss lacquer. I get that. You're trying to do that super contemporary with an old style with that. I get that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about your painted shaker that they painted it with a lacquer. I'm talking about the maple cabinets that they stained a little darker and put a maple over that maple and put a top coat over the top of it using clear lacquer. Those just don't hold up. And especially on woods like maple that are hard and non-porous. Many times you go around the kitchen sink, when you see lacquers, you'll see the finish peeling off. You'll see just from moisture, that lacquer coming off the stained finish down below. So that's definitely one of those things when you look at it, you go, man, okay, lacquer, stay away from that. I'd much rather see something that's been on cabinetry for 20 years, 20 plus years out there, conversion varnish. That's a 2-part conversion varnish. So when they mix the hardener with the product, it sets up. Many times that will be in a larger factory area. They're going to actually have an oven that bakes it or UV cures it. That's one way to do it. Another way is there are some urethane finishes out there that are new, that are water-based. And I tell you what, the new water-based finishes are really nice. They've done a great job. 15 years ago, they looked a little milky. They weren't that great. They have really come a long way. And I would much rather have a newer water-based finish than an old lacquer one because the lacquer just doesn't hold up. It's too soft. It checks. It just doesn't hold up to wood that's moving around all the time. It was hard enough to keep a good looking on metal that doesn't move near as much. But as soon as you get that around wood and moisture, that goes sideways. So take a look at the finish of what's going on and ask those questions. If it's lacquer, I walk away. I don't think it's a quality material. And that's a big one right there. And we're going to talk a little bit more finish on this when we get later on in the episode, because our last one here has got some more finish stuff on it. But just what I want to talk about this one here, making sure that you've got this dialed in on the finish and knowing what's going on there. And it's depending on the wood. Some people will go, hey, I'm going to do a white oak with just a clear finish over the top. Great. A good cabinet company uses finishes that are great examples. Sherwin-Williams, they have a commercial finish division for water-based, for their chemical-based, that's not a water-based, but more their oil type-based finishes, which are more of they take thinners and things like that to clean up. But really, those non-water-based finishes, those all go through the commercial. So those guys don't typically get their finish through what I would call a paint store. And so really, cabinet people work with their finish reps and they drop off 5-gallon to 50-gallon buckets of this stuff. And that's what's going on your cabinets. If your cabinet person is going down and grabbing stuff off the paint store shelves, you're making me really nervous because that finish is not going to be what you expect. And a lot of people expect a really nice finish, and that can be really tough. I have seen painters come in and paint kitchen cabinets, and they looked beautiful. I've also seen them come in, and they don't know what they're doing. They caulk all the doors, all the gaps on that, and then they come through and paint it, and it looks absolutely like garbage. And you've got a ruined finish already. And now you got to strip that down, which is a hot mess. So making sure that finish is what you want it to be early, that's one of my top questions to ask. Now, when we come back, we have got some really big details to cover here on Cabinetry on those questions asked just as soon as Around the House returns. To find out more about us, head to aroundthehouseonline.com. We'll be right back.
Should I be allowed to be so hot? So many.
Are you a contractor, landscaper, or small business owner? Are you tired of renting or pulling that worn-out trailer to the job site? Is that really the best look for your company? It's time to up your game and check out the trailers from Summit Trailer. If you want the highest quality trailer you can own, they are proudly made right here in Oregon with a dealer network all along the West Coast. What I love about my Summit Trailer is that it's a dump trailer that was designed to work. I can load it up without having to worry about if it's going to be able to lift the load, and it pulls like a dream. This was built to work. So it doesn't matter if you want a dump trailer like mine or a deck over flatbed, tilt bed, or utility trailer. They got a trailer that'll fit your needs. Invest in your business with something you'll feel proud of, pulling up to any job site or your next project. Check out the best trailer in the West at summittrailermfg.com. Check out the dealer locator and find your nearest dealer at summittrailermfg.com. Are you a small business owner? Has business slowed down? How is your website? Does it look like it's seen better days and those are behind it? It's time you fix it with SciPipe Designs. My friend Johnny that you've heard on this show each week, yeah, that's him playing in the background, is my go-to web designer that understands how to get your website and web traffic where it needs to be, and that's making you money. If you want personalized service at a much lower price than those big companies out there, check him out at sitehypedesigns.com. If you want a rockstar website to turn your business around, you gotta hire the rockstar. Just wait till you see my website coming soon. It's absolutely amazing. Contact Johnny at sitehypedesigns.com before it costs you even more money. Let's get that business turned around. Welcome back to the Around the House show, the next generation of home improvement. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Eric G. If you want to find out more about us here, if you're one of the new radio stations catching us across the country, find out more about us. Social media, just look for Around the House show or go to aroundthehouseonline.com and you can find us there. Now, this segment is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grills. To check them out, head to monumentgrills.com. If you're looking for a killer barbecue for under $900, there's a great savings there. We've been talking about my top 10 questions you need to know the answers to before you buy cabinetry out there. Before you go out and look for that kitchen, bathroom, den, office, garage, whatever you're doing, these are the questions that I think are the most important to ask so you understand what you're getting and you can make the right decisions for your project. Now, if you're joining us on the podcast, of course, you're still listening to us here, but if you're listening on the radio show or streaming out there, we were just talking about making sure that you understand what's going on. Custom does not mean quality. So understanding what's going into this is big because custom, anybody could be custom. They're just making it for your house. That's all custom means. And then, of course, the finish is an important one. Now, the next one here is really big, and it's how are the cabinets going to be built? And I'm talking really about the hardware here. I'm talking about the drawer glides, the hinges, pullouts, any of that stuff. What's going on there? Now, here's where this becomes an issue. If you go on to your local Southeast Asia import cabinet knockdown, they come in a box, you got to put them together like IKEA. And I'm not talking IKEA here, but I'm talking about your import knockdown companies. Many times they are not using name brand hardware. What do I mean by name brand hardware? There's three hardware companies that I think are legitimate companies out there. There's probably more, but these are the common ones. You've got Bloom, BLU. You've got Salici, which is SALICE. And then you've got Grass, GRASS. Those are three different. Bloom to me is the best. Solici second. Gross probably third. We could have a debate on those, but that's where I'm seeing those in my line of work and the reliability of all those. You'll see some different brands in different places, but that's really the three main companies. The problem is, it's down the road. Maybe you got a kid playing or somehow a hinge gets broken. Those hinges are finely machined into the cabinets. And if you can't find a replacement piece, it is going to be a woodworking masterclass to fit another hinge on these cabinets. And there's a lot of choices and a lot of places mistakes can happen. So I want to make sure that when you're getting cabinetry, what brand of hinges are they? Soft close? Are they undermount? Are they concealed? What's going on with that? And to me, undermount glides are going to be the best because those are underneath the drawer box. There's really no reason to be using the white epoxy coated side slides or kind of the bottom slides with the little white rollers on them that you see in all the super cheap home improvement store stock cabinetry stuff. That stuff's garbage. Just don't do it. Spend the money on the hardware so it holds up. And also, as you're doing this, take a look, because traditionally a drawer box, when you open a drawer box off, throw a tape measure on it. There's probably 2.5, 3 inches between the back of that drawer box and the cabinet back there. There's a little bit of space. Some of these cheaper companies might go 5 inches or so, and now all of a sudden you're losing a lot of space. I get it when there's 2.5, but if you're getting up 4 or 5 inches behind a drawer, unless you've got something going up there like a faucet, which wouldn't make any sense because you got to have a sink in there. You see where I'm getting at. It doesn't make any sense. So for me, you want to make sure that those things are deep enough that you're going to get the storage. So I expect to see a few inches back there. That's fine. That's standard. Many times companies will have a 21-inch drawer depth front to back, and then you've got a 24-inch deep cabinet box. That's super common. Not a problem. I just want to make sure you're getting a 19 or something like that because they're saving money on hinges, on glides, and on drawer boxes. Now, when it comes to drawer boxes, as far as that construction, plywood is great. I have no problem with it. Dovetail is nice, but it's not as big as it used to be. When you had cheaper drawer glides like the side glides or the little white epoxy mount ones that were on the edges, that drawer box had to stay together. But when you have undermount glides, it doesn't mean as much. So to me, unless you want it to look beautiful when somebody opens a drawer up, dovetail's nice, but it's not needed like it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago. So that is a luxury item, I would add. It is not a definite item where the undermount drawer glides that are Bloom, Solici, Gross are more important than the drawer box construction because you're just adding money that is not adding value to you on what you're doing. So just think about that through, how that's going to work with that. So make sure you're paying attention to where that hardware is coming. And if it's an import cabinet, make sure it's not some ugly knockoff that you'll never find replacement parts for. So that's a big one. Now, how the boxes are construction is another big piece, how these things are built together. And that is huge. And there's 3 major types of construction for cabinetry that you see in the United States. The old school face frame style cabinet. That's where it's got like a 1x2 face across there that's built across it. And then your drawers and doors go over the top of that, right? And so that's your traditional face frame cabinet. Now, if you look at frameless Euro style cabinets or full access, depending on what you want to call, these cabinets just have the sides, which are 5/8 or 3/4 of an inch, and everything fits in within that. So you have a lot of drawers. That frameless style gives you a lot more storage on a small kitchen. That can give you an extra 18 inches of cabinet storage if you've got a lot of drawers. Hey, adding a 4-drawer 18-inch to a small kitchen is big when it comes to storage. So think about that. That is big. And that's where you can save. Now, there's another version of a face frame style cabinet, and that's an inset, where when you're looking at a face frame cabinet, the doors and drawers typically overlay fully over that. So there's like a 3/16 gap around the cabinets. Now, if you're on a budget or you're trying to just do something on the cheap, then you have those, what they call half overlay or a modified overlay, where there's a 1/2 inch that the door is covering the frame. And there's a big gap between the doors. Now, if you're looking at a more classic furniture look, That's where you see flush inset. And that is where you have a face frame, but the doors and drawer fronts are flush inset into that. So instead of them laying on front, they're inset. Now, these do waste a ton of space. There are a ton of problems with this. You need to make sure that this is going into a house that has a full system for making sure that humidity is under control, that you're not putting in a vacation house or a coastal property. Because here's what happens. Those drawer and drawer fronts, you usually have a nice tight gap in those. By the time everything expanding and contracting, you will fight those things if you don't have your humidity 100% controlled in that place. If you're on a lake, if you're at the beach, you're in Hawaii, just bag that idea. It's not worth the hassle. So those are not great for that. It's just the same thing when it comes to little side note on that as well. It's like doors and drawer fronts. When you look at high-end flat slab doors and drawer fronts that are contemporary, veneers are the best way to go. A solid piece of maple, oak, white oak, whatever, tends to move around a lot. So veneers are better and will be more reliable than that solid piece of wood, because that wood's going to want to warp. It's going to want to move around. It's what happens with those things. Now, when we come back, we're going to get in the meat and the heart of this here with some of the big ones on those questions you should ask before you order cabinetry just as soon as Around the House returns. To find out more information about us, head over to aroundthehouseonline.com. We'll be right back.
Let's sound that bell keeps us free.
Hey guys, it's Eric G, and I have a special offer for you. Do you want to get the podcast a couple days early? How about extended content that isn't in the typical podcast? Maybe you want to check out all the back episodes of the show. And I got a special deal for the first 10 days are free. I want to personally invite you to be an Around the House insider. For about $4 a month, you can get exclusive extended episodes, early access to the weekend show, and exclusive access to me, Eric G, for project questions or comments. Check on the link on your podcast player in the show notes, or head to aroundthehouseonline.com and look for the join here button. Make sure and sign up today. As always, thanks for tuning in to Around the House. Water quality in your home is a hot topic right now. Everybody's talking about it. And are you worried about what you're drinking and you want to fix it once and for all? Are you tired of spending all that money on bottled water or a filter system that is expensive to run and maintain? I have a great solution for you. It's time you stop the damage and the worrying and check out Freedom Water Systems. They just changed their name from King Water Filters. This water treatment system takes care of every drop of water that comes into your house, uses no salt, no expensive filters to change, and it's made right here in the USA. Plus, it can prevent hard water scale. They have a solution for just about any water issue. To find out more information, head to freedomwatersystems.com, and if you use promo code ERIC-23, it will give you $1,000 off MSRP with a discount on the filter that will resolve those water quality issues. And if you need help, they have experts right on staff here in the United States to help you with your water quality issues. Don't miss out on this amazing sale on a product made right here in the USA at freedomwatersystems.com. That's freedomwatersystems.com. And don't forget, promo code ERIC-23. Welcome back to the Around the House show, the next generation of home improvement. I'm Eric G. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate you catching us either on the podcast, the national radio show, or streaming all across the United States and beyond. Thanks for tuning in today. We've been talking about my top 10 questions you should be asking if you're out buying cabinetry. And this is a huge deal, so this can save you a ton of money and headaches. If you follow my rules here, it's going to help get you the information you need so you know how to make the decisions and where to spend money and maybe where not to. This hour is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grills. Check them out at monumentgrills.com. We've been cruising through the list here, and this is really big. We were just talking about box construction and inset and the different types of construction there. And the next one's important too. When you're ordering cabinetry, whether it's semi-custom, whatever, there are things that you need to make sure that you're signing and approving that are warning signs if they're not doing this when you go write the check or give them your credit card. And here's what they are. When ordering cabinetry, you need to make sure that you have a set of drawings that have been measured by them and that you're going to initial and approve. You should have already figured out your appliances. Now, this is going to be the drawing of exactly what they're building, and everything should be noted on those drawings. If there's doors in a drawer, don't assume that you're going to have 2 pullouts in it. Behind that door, it better say it on the drawings. So those drawings are to protect the cabinet shop and you. So make sure on those drawings, it shows all the right details, all the stuff you need, whether it's the little, whether it's all the little stuff you need. I'm talking about anything, box construction, finish, door style, all those things. I want to see it on the drawings. Everything right there. You're good to go that way. Then after that, I want to make sure that you've got a stain sample that you've initialed or that you're referring to that you've approved, and a door sample that you've approved. Now, here is the problem. When you look at a little 3x5, 3 inches by 5 inches color sample and you're approving it, that kitchen might not look like that sample. And here's where you run into problems with cabinetry. And this is a big one. Let's say that sample was a light cherry. If that sample is over a few months old, what you get will look different. And I can promise you that. Because cherry ages, it darkens as it gets some time under its belt. And if there's a lot of UV, there's windows out to the lake and there's light reflecting up in there, it'll change quick. So much so that I've had cabinets that were installed. Painters were doing final painting and they left some tape on it for more than a couple days. There was enough UV coming in that you could see tape marks because it had blocked UV. Now, it took a few days for it to catch up. Wasn't that big a deal. But this is where these problems arise. So what happens is, and with lighter woods, it can be a little bit different. Let's say you went and got you wanted a contemporary kitchen. You're like, I love natural hard rock maple, that light white wood. Guess what? Is going to show off way too much in a whole kitchen unless you're spending big money. Here's what happens. Depending on the minerals of the soil content where those maple trees have grown. For custom kitchens, I would get all the veneers from the same tree, and they would still be a little bit off. If you've got different trees going on there, and now if you're ordering these from your home center, these are not options you will ever have. This is where you get into a higher end cabinet to do this. But if you go in and try to order a maple veneer kitchen out of, let's say, Craftmade, I don't even know if they'll do that anymore, but let's say they did. You're going to have serious color variation issues between cabinets. That's why I want to make sure that if you're doing that, you're paying more and getting it where they're flitch veneering. So they are actually taking those veneer flitches, they're matching them up. And here's the problem. Let's take it from the cabinet manufacturer side. These folks are looking at it and they're a mid-level or an entry-level shop. They look at it and they all look good to them. But until you get the finish on it, it doesn't really rear its ugly head. There's just not enough variation. But what we would do is we would set them all out in a cart in the light and take a look and see how it looked first. And if they looked perfect, then probably going to be okay. Now, one way to get around that is a lot of the companies go, hey, we're not going to do it in the semi-custom world. We're not going to do a natural. We'll do a little tint to it. And that kind of makes up for that a little bit. But really, these are the problems that you run into with natural woods. And you can run into that where you got white oak that goes a little pink, even though the red oak will look really pink. You can get many different this is wood. This is not a printed picture. This is not something that we see in a laminate. This is not one of those things. So the problem that we see with this is that, yeah, that tree grew and it grabbed iron out of the ground and it soaked it up into it, whatever it is, whatever that mineral is. It can change the color of that. So the panels might be a little bit different. Or you get into some woods. There was a wood that I used in a penthouse. I actually used it in a whole condo project up in Bellevue, Washington. And this stuff was a eucalyptus green hybrid. So it would grow out of the same stump again. So it was a really cool idea. And it was called Liptus wood. And what we did is we did this whole kitchen bathrooms out of this on the whole condo project. It was super cool. However, the problem is with the lighter stains, the wood refracted light. So the rails, think of rails like a train rails, the pieces on the bottom of the door, the side pieces that went up and down, those always looked lighter. So you would have these kind of problems from the wood. So this is why I want you to make sure that you see a stain sample. When I was running my kitchen and bath company up in the Seattle area, that place up there, I tell you what, we had it where we would order a door in and you would sign it. That way you knew exactly what you're getting. And you didn't have to work with a little tiny sample. So that way you could see what you were getting. Now, there's going to be some variation because it's wood, but I want you to understand where the hiccups are going to be so you understand it. I have seen color samples. We would replace our color samples in cherry and even maples and some of the other woods every 6 months because we wanted something that would be accurate to what it showed up at your house, not what it looked like 6 months later, because natural woods love to change colors. Now, you'll see this with walnut. Walnut can get darker, but as soon as it gets a lot of sunlight, it gets way lighter and bleaches out. Cherry will actually do it. I saw an old cabinet showroom that was up in Vancouver, Washington one time, other side of the river. These guys have been there for 20 years. They had a cherry kitchen in this front, just absolutely west-facing display with floor-to-ceiling glass. It was so white, it was like driftwood. You open the door up and you're like, that's cherry? Wow. That's really how you can tell how these woods change when you're out looking at cabinet displays. Open those doors up. It's been around for a long time. First off, you'll see it because it'll look dated. But if you notice the inside is different than the outside, you've had some aging there. And light can do that. So be very careful with that. Now, some of the things is some of these cabinet companies too will change their finishes along the way. 10 years ago, they got rid of lacquer and they went to a conversion varnish. Some people won't show that. And sometimes those formulations for those colors are slightly different. So that's why I want to make sure you sign off on those things. But these are the problems that you can get really careful that you can get burned on. So just make sure that you've approved everything. And if not, that should be a warning sign that you could have some issues and you might not be getting what you paid for. So that's a big one. Now, here's another one that's a little controversial, and I want to talk about this before we go to break. Do not design your own kitchen as a homeowner or even a contractor. Because I tell you what, here's the problem. A good kitchen designer, after they've learned their trade, maybe they've gone to design school, even coming out of college, they probably need 2 years of designs to get good at what they're doing. So I bet you they need 30 or 40 projects to really start getting their feet under them, even coming right out of a good college and an internship. It just takes that long. There's 1,000 things that can go wrong in a kitchen project. And I don't want to see that happen to yours if you did it. So you want to have somebody with another set of eyes. We'll talk about what to look for in a designer when we come back, because this is a big one. And this can save you a ton of money if you do it right, so you're not ordering cabinets twice. We'll do that just as soon as Around the House continues with this great subject on those 10 questions you should be asking before you write the check on that cabinetry. We'll be right back. Hey guys, it's Eric G, and I have a special offer for you. Do you want to get the podcast a couple days early? How about extended content that isn't in the typical podcast? Maybe you want to check out all the back episodes of the show. And I got a special deal for the first 10 days are free. I want to personally invite you to be an Around the House insider. For about $4 a month, you can get exclusive extended episodes, early access to the weekend show, and exclusive access to me, Eric G, for project questions or comments. Check on the link on your podcast player in the show notes, or head to aroundthehouseonline.com and look for the join here button. Make sure and sign up today. As always, thanks for tuning in to Around the House. Hey guys, it's Eric G from Around the House Show. Is your barbecue just barely holding on and you need to upgrade it for the big game? We got you covered. Monument Grills was founded by three good friends in Atlanta, Georgia that wanted high-quality, durable grills inspired by iconic monuments. The grills are created for the person who loves to cook and are built to last and to enhance your outdoor cooking experience. What I love is that they are the best quality grills for under $900. So check out the American gas grill experts at monumentgrills.com. I bet you'll love to cook on one like I do. Check out the new standard in outdoor cooking at monumentgrills.com. Welcome back to the Around the House Show, the next generation of home improvement. I'm Eric G. Thanks for joining me today. We've been talking about our 10 things you need to know, at least 10, before you go order that cabinetry for whatever project you're working on, whether it's a home office project, that kitchen remodel, the bathroom remodel, office, den, whatever you're working on. These are the things you need to ask of your cabinet people before you place that order. And in this, we got a lot to cover here, so I want to jump through this pretty quickly and stay on task here just to make sure, let you know this segment is brought to you by our friends at Monument Grills. Check them out at monumentgrills.com. And if you want to find out more about us here at the show, head to aroundthehouseon.com and make sure you follow us on all our social media channels. So we were just talking about hiring a designer, and the biggest thing here is to have somebody that knows a lot more about this than you, and that is to bring in somebody. I prefer an NKBA, National Kitchen and Bath Association here in the United States, one of their certified kitchen and bath designers. I'm old school. I was a certified kitchen designer in 1999. Still am to this day, even though I'm a little more in the retired status because I'm not designing for clients anymore. But here's the thing. This is what you need to do this. To get through this, they have to have years and years of experience. They have testing. They need to make sure that they know what they're doing. And these people are going to keep you out of issues. Is it going to be foolproof? No. But at least they have the basics to design you a great kitchen and to avoid those thousands of pitfalls. Because the last thing you want to do is exactly copy the plan you had before. That's a huge problem. And you don't want to do that because kitchens 30 years ago, we have a lot of different things going in those kitchens, and the appliances are different. Lots of things are different. You want to start over with that new plan. So making sure you use a kitchen and bath designer. I like the certified ones. That's the way I would go. And they're really not going to charge you much more than another designer, but make sure that they specialize in that, and that's going to save you money. So here's the debate here, this next one that I wanted to cover, because it's a little controversial. Is plywood better than furniture board or particle board? And to me, it's where are the materials coming from? If I'm getting something coming from a knockdown Southeast Asia company, and they're not coming into California, and they're coming in anywhere in the United States, I start to get really worried about is there formaldehyde or other bad chemicals in that plywood? Because formaldehyde glues work really well and they're cheap and they give off horrible chemical results to many people out there that's not healthy. Formaldehyde is great for embalming bodies, but it's not great to be in your cabinetry. Now, formaldehyde is natural. It can show up in an apple. It's there. But I don't want to have it added to my cabinetry. So import stuff, yeah, be careful of this. If you're buying something, I want to see plywood that it's certified, no added urea formaldehyde. That's what you look for. That NOF plywood. That's a big one. Now, here's the problem. Is it more water resistant? Not usually. If you get a leak under the sink and it's a plywood base versus a particle board, the particle board's going to warp, the plywood's going to warp. The finish on top's going to come off. The difference is usually when you've got the white, you've got the melamine on there, which is a little more durable than the Eurobox or whatever that wood is, whether it's a birch or a maple ply that's got a clear coat on it. That coating usually on that white melamine or maple melamine or whatever it is as or more durable depending on how they built the box. Yeah, and the other thing is the particle board is very accurate in a cabinet plan. That a ½ inch is ½ inch, 5/8 is 5/8, whatever it is. That's what it is. The bigger problem gets in when they're building cabinet boxes because plywood is 3/4 plywood is not 3/4. It's close, but I've had long kitchen runs that you design out. This is why you need to use fillers Wall to wall, I've seen an inch grow out of cabinets because that plywood was a little thicker than 3/4. And if you add a 1/16 cabinets, guess what happens? You've added more than an inch because you've got two sides. So this is where you've got to be really careful with what's going on in those cabinet boxes. Plywood can be a pain sometimes because I know that the cabinet shops are not sitting there before they put it into the CNC machine. Most of them are not miking that off to let you know what the internal cabinet parts are. And if those sides are a little bit thicker, that's going to make it up on the outside because most of the time that's where that's going to show up. So be very careful with that. That's where you run into problems. My house, I did particle board because I didn't see the value of an extra 15%. And that was me. Now I could have spent more for it. I just didn't because I just didn't see the value. So that's what you're going to have to decide on what you want to do. Plywood is going to be a little stronger many times. Yeah, if you've got kids, you're not going to rip out drawer glides as easy. You're not going to rip out hinges as easy, but most of the time you break the door anyway. That's the weak point. So I wouldn't worry so much about that. So be careful on those upsells. That can be an issue. So the next one here is interesting. And this is my best advice to you guys out there. Focus on made in USA products with cabinetry. Even though many, if not all, I'm going to go with many of the companies that you see selling cabinets at a Lowe's, Home Depot, those big box stores, most of them are shipping plywood and particle board to Southeast Asia, having it cut, shipping it back because they can do it cheaper there than they can in the States. Many of these guys are importing cut parts and they are assembled in the US, but not all of the cut parts are made in the US. And that's how they're saving on labor. And that is, we'll talk about this. I'm going to bring the Kitchen Cabinet Manufacturers Association on down the road here, working on setting up a detail here after the holidays with them. But I'm going to have them come on and we're going to talk about some of this unspoken stuff that's happening out there. Make sure you're buying the made in USA stuff when you can, guys. Let's support these local cabinet companies and not be supporting some of the other companies that have been dumping and have tariffs on them because they've been putting it into the U.S. cheaper than the raw materials even are, trying to put out American jobs. I don't like that. I think we should support our made in USA companies, or even made in North America. I don't care if it's coming out of Canada. That's fine. I love our neighbors to the north. A lot of the woods are coming out of there anyway. But you see where I'm getting at. Let's support local as best we can. Now, the next one here is interesting. The cabinet layout and design is just as important as the cabinetry itself. So make sure that you're spending that time on the design and the layout, paying attention. When I design things out, things to look for. These are things to look for. Things that I go, hey, we need to do this. This is important stuff. Really, when it comes down to it, you think about zones in the kitchen. It used to be 20 years ago, and some people still do it today. They think of this kitchen triangle, which is basically the cooking surface, the cooktop, the sink, and the refrigerator. I do it differently. I do cooking zones where I have a prep zone, a cleanup zone, those kind of things. So if I have a sink on a wall and my range is over there to the right, or my cooktop is to the right, I don't want to put the dishwasher in there because I now am putting my cleanup and my prep zone in the same area. So in that situation, I always want to put the dishwasher to the left. So that way, all the dirty dishes stay on the left of the sink. You can put the trash can below it on the right. Here's why. So think about this. You're standing at the sink. Visualize this with me here, guys. If I've got my dishwasher to the left and my range to the right, I want to put my trash can in a cabinet below on the right. So then when I'm prepping, I can throw it down below. And if I'm loading my dishwasher to the left, I can scrape stuff off into the trash on the right side and put stuff in the left. So these are all the things that you should be thinking about as you design out that kitchen and making it work correctly. So this is where you plan and fix those design issues that they put in 30 years ago that didn't really matter then, that really matter now. And that's a big one. So think about how these things all work together. And of course, how everything plays together in the kitchen and where you're going to store stuff. Glass doors, awesome. Except their display. It's not where you put the Cheerios. Unless you've got extra storage, maybe think twice about glass, unless you're okay with seeing everything that's in your cabinets. It'll control dust, but that's a big one. Now, my last one here before we go out to break is important. And quite frankly, it's super regional as well. But here are my rules. I don't like finish in place cabinetry. There is no reason why raw cabinets should be showing up in the field and they're going to be stained at the project. Those should be finished at the shop and taken care of. I can see with moldings why it would make sense to finish in place, but if you've got a great carpenter, they can make that look amazing on the install. Finished in place cabinetry, though it's hot, especially with painted in certain parts of the country, does not give you as good a finish. It's a softer finish than anything you're going to get that's factory applied. I like a baked on finish where the computer comes through and uses the robot on a flatline finishing system, finishes all the doors and drawer fronts, puts the right mill thickness in a hermetically sealed, clean area, and bakes it on and goes out to the job site. I'm Eric G, and you've been listening to Around the House. Are you a contractor, landscaper, or small business owner? Are you tired of renting or pulling that worn-out trailer to the job site? Is that really the best look for your company? It's time to up your game and check out the trailers from Summit Trailer. If you want the highest quality trailer you can own, they are proudly made right here in Oregon with a dealer network all along the West Coast. What I love about my Summit Trailer is that it's a dump trailer that was designed to work. I can load it up without having to worry about if it's going to be able to lift the load, and it pulls like a dream. This was built to work. So it doesn't matter if you want a dump trailer like mine or a deck over flatbed, tilt bed, or utility trailer. They got a trailer that'll fit your needs. Invest in your business with something you'll feel proud of, pulling up to any job site or your next project. Check out the best trailer in the West at summittrailermfg.com. Check out the dealer locator and find your nearest dealer at summittrailermfg.com.